one thing that all of you need to understand is that you have everything you need to be an extraordinary storyteller
Right now.
right now. You were born with it. Think of yourself when you were a kid on the playground and you were a soldier or you were having a tea party or whatever you were doing. Look at your imagination and how many different characters you were able to create and the stories that you told, a beginning, a middle, and an end. You've been able to do this since you were a child. You're already an extraordinary storyteller.
A lot of people, like when we have new clients coming to Stray On, they complain about, "Oh, I used to be able to do that when I was a child, but I seem to have lost that ability." It has to do with growing up in our society that is, very result oriented, and the processes for learning that we use nowadays kind of cuts out the creativity a little bit. But the good news is that it's just about practice. You can get that back by doing something creative every day.
I think that's true. We're in the society that tells us we're not good enough. We have to get a book on how to raise a kid or get a book on what we should eat every day. And the deal is no, and especially for art, especially for storytelling, you've got it right now. You're born with it. Use it. Start doing it.
Yeah, it's about that human relationships, right? Stories.
Yeah.
It's about how the human heart changes, which I think is going to be a future.
That's a future
video.
Future video.
But yeah, you have everything that you need right now.
Right.
All the tools, and all you have to do is to go back to doing it.
Right, and a lot of times we have people and they're afraid of that success. They're afraid.
Right.
We hear that all the time. Self-sabotage, how people sabotage themselves and stuff, and I can kind of understand that in a society point of view of how we're raised and stuff. But don't be afraid to be an extraordinary storyteller, the one that you already are.
Yeah, don't be afraid to shine your light.
Yeah.
And I had this little experience in class when I began coaching a few decades ago, and I was kind of having a hard time, with the process of being an actor and now being a coach. And I had this moment. I was sitting in class, and I've been coaching the same people for a few months now. And as they're coming in, and they're sitting down to, for
getting ready
for class. I just had this moment over there, and I'm looking at them, and it was a very overwhelming feeling of how extraordinary they all were. We have people from different backgrounds, different levels of experience. Our class doesn't have really a beginner, intermediate, advanced level. We get all kinds of actors. And in their own journeys, I just understood how amazing and unique and extraordinary each one of them were.
Yeah.
When I was thinking of this girl or that guy, and how, they came in and what they knew at the beginning and where they were now and what they had to overcome, the obstacles and fears and everything that was, holding them back. And it's interesting because a lot of you guys, a lot of them, didn't really realize how great that journey was.
Yeah.
And it's really overwhelming. I know it's hard to believe when you don't see it, but it's pretty amazing how extraordinary each one of us can be.
Yeah, you need to break through the fear thing. You need to trust faith.
Acting takes a lot of trust.
Yeah,
right?
It does.
Because,
It's scary.
if you're doing theater, you're in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
If you're doing film, you're around a bunch of people too, and a lot of people are going to watch you afterwards. But it takes a lot of trust because you're putting yourself really out there in a vulnerable position, and especially depending on the kind of story you're telling.
Yeah.
So you have to trust yourself, you have to trust that scene partner, you have to trust the story, you have to trust a lot of variables that you cannot control. And I think that's the thing about trusting in acting is trying not to control everything.
Yeah.
When you see an actor who is aware of the whole thing, of the whole process, take 1, 2, 3, this is an actor who's not going to enjoy the journey. This is an actor who is not going to find that special creative moment because they're trying to rationally control everything that happens.
Right. But the extraordinary storyteller, they know themselves well enough to trust that this usually works, that usually happens. So they're incredibly vulnerable, but they have this trust to, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And in that moment, what happens is they do extraordinary choices that nobody could have preconceived. No director, no writer, no actor could ever have preconceived. That's when you're really being a storyteller, an extraordinary artist.
And that's something for you to develop. Doesn't matter in what stage in your acting you are. You know, trust that you put the work in during rehearsals and your preparation and all that, and you can try different things on purpose. But when you're actually telling the story, let go of everything.
Yeah.
Let go of all the amazing choices that you found during rehearsals, because you can't really recreate everything. And you have to trust that you've learned enough and you've explored enough that something amazing is gonna
You call
show
it the
up.
fool's trust, that you jump. You got to jump. You jump into it. You jump into, the abyss or off the cliff or out of the airplane or into the fire. That's what actors do every single time that they're acting.
And that takes a lot of courage.
It takes an awful lot of courage to be able to do that. You know you've done your job. You trust you've done your job. You've done the research and everything else. And now comes the time when they're about to say action or the curtain's about to go up, and you need the courage to go forward. Always remember one thing: courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving ahead in spite of the fear. That's what you've got to have. But if you're doing it every day, that courage and trust and faith is going to be there for you, because most of the time it works. Every once in a while it doesn't. That's a learning lesson. But most of the time, if you're doing this consistently, most of the time that trust and that courage is going to be there, and you're going to do something extraordinary.
And in class, we have people sometimes when they do an amazing scene, they ask, how do I do this every single time? How do I find the zone or that creative mist? Or I don't know, I like to say creative mist.
Rarefied air, some people call it.
And again, we're talking about the formula, right? It's like, what are the steps that I follow in order to be super creative? And there is no formula, but I think that doing this every day, once in a while, is going to hit you like a train, and you're going to have that amazing experience of, oh my God, I couldn't have thought of that choice for my character. You have to do this often enough so you have more hits than misses.
Yeah. And the things that worked for you yesterday will not work for you today sometimes.
That's right.
Because you're growing. The world is changing, the audience is changing, the technology is changing, and you are changing. So be aware that this needs to evolve and grow. That happens almost all by itself if you're working all the time.
And don't forget, if you're doing this all the time, you're doing this every day, and it really becomes that enjoyable journey, and you're doing great work, don't forget to be humble, because we'll never know everything there is to know.
Right.
You're never going to get it. Even if you mastered this art, you're never going to get to a point that you can say, oh, I know everything.
Yeah.
So don't forget that. That's a very important lesson to learn, especially if you're doing a film with somebody who's just starting out. Don't forget that we'll never know everything. That you're always going to have new lessons to learn. Doesn't matter where you are in life.
Okay. So the past 3 videos, we've given you things to work on and play with, and now we're going to tie it all up.
We're talking about putting yourself out there and creating your work, and watching your progress and your journey and enjoying the whole thing. So this week, invite your, best friends or family, or maybe a mentor you have, or some colleagues or peers, and show them what you created. So get a little monologue that you shot last week, or the scenes, and invite them out, have a good time, and show them what you came up with.